Hi everyone, welcome to or back to my channel. My name is James Feeney. Today I'm going to be doing a VR to Natalia at Ouroboros, the Council of Seven tarot decks. I discovered this tag actually through Kasia at Tarot Map, which is a channel that I've been watching and loving for the longest time. And this was also how I found Natalia's channel, so I'm really thankful for that, and I've thoroughly dug into all of her videos, and I'm such a fan now and a subscriber, so I'm really thankful for that. And I think that this tag is really interesting. I'm filming this after both the Tarot and the Oracle VRs have been released, so I'll be doing the Oracle one after, and I have those selected, but I'm really excited for both of these, and the concept of it seems a little bit deeper than just say like favorite decks or ones that you might be working with, but ones that you think really reflect you. I really loved seeing Natalia's picks and Kasia's picks, and I've seen a few others. I couldn't help myself, I just went down the rabbit hole with all of those. But I'm excited to share my 7 now. I'm filming this for the second time because the first one seemed really disjointed and I went off on way too many tangents, and I think I'm already doing better now than I was in that one. But without any further ado, I'm going to get into my 7. So the first one is the Tarot of the Alchemical Magnum Opus by Robert M. Place. Love him, love his decks and his books. I have the Alchemical Tarot, which I know many people are familiar with, but this one actually is more so my favorite. I would kind of consider it like a cousin to the Alchemical Tarot, but with some very key differences, which is why it's here for me as a council member. You'll notice that it is very minimalistic in its artwork, and that a lot of the almost all of the major arcana, I'm pretty sure all the major arcanas titles have been replaced with alchemical processes, not to mention that of course the minor arcana deal more so in that realm. To me, this would be a council member who started as a scientist, a very young curious mind with a lot of potential, who didn't really see much value in the esoteric, magic, spiritual, and who became a master in science, and in doing so and reaching that pinnacle realized that in order to go further they needed to sort of investigate the esoteric and incorporate that into their science. So there's a firm sort of grounded mathematical scientific approach to this council member, but in having mastered that and then explored the esoteric and like a proper sort of genius, they master that as well, and in doing so they distill it back into these very simple components where things that they thought were so complex are actually so much more simple than they would have ever imagined. And to me, this deck is very simple in its delivery, with these massive concepts and archetypes and messages delivered in very minimalistic, simple terms. So this council member would tell you that to sort of cut out all the fluff, or to really concentrate it down to its most base elements and parts, and to look at it that way, to sort of that your head is maybe too clouded and that things are not as dire or as cluttered and complex as they seem, that at its core things are a lot more simple, and once we get to that point of understanding, the answers will become a lot more clear to us. So that's the first council member. And I do have an honorable mention at the end, and it's just because that deck is very new to my collection, and I can't be sure if it's sort of that new deck feeling, or if it's going to have a lasting effect that's really important. So we'll get to that. I'll save it for the end, and I'm not counting it as a council member, but I am mentioning it. So the second one we have is the Wildwood Tarot. I apologize. I know the name of the creators of this deck, but I just can't remember them. I will link everything below. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at that. And it's not because I don't want to give credit, it's just my memory. So this council member is, how would I describe them? Somebody who's a little bit unconventional in their approach, and who almost appears to others as though maybe they have like a screw loose, or they're a little bit crazy and off the rails. And people don't really know how, like, what box they fit within, and that's the whole point, that they don't fit within any given box. They're a little bit kooky and fun and wild, and they kind of teach you that there are infinite numbers of ways to proceed or to move or to go in. There's not just forward and backwards, but there's left ways, sideways, inwards, outwards, above, below, outside of, just this sort of out of the box thinking that isn't bound to any laws of this world or other worlds for that matter. The one who makes you, who pushes you to go beyond yourself, or beyond the sort of boundaries that you may not even know that you had, but that are there in order to solve problems, or to get to the bottom of things, or to make progress, and to, in terms of growth. One who has this sort of harebrained scheme that does not seem like it would work, but that ultimately does, and works in a way that you didn't even think that that would be the outcome of that given plan, I guess. So yeah, just a little bit wild and super fun. Yeah, fun and wild, very fiery. So that's that council member. Next we have, on a little bit of a different, well, they're all very different personality for the purposes of this challenge, but we have the Spirit Keeper's Tarot, the Vitruvian edition by Benebell Wen. And this is one, personally, I think I may have in recent months spent the most time with. I've been doing the 22-week workbook course for this deck, and I'm about 12 or 13 weeks in, so a little over 3 months into that. I've had it for longer than that, though, but to me, this would be, and Benebell talks about it, I believe it's like the Prescathila. I'm not really good with terms, especially when they're not when they're based in Latin and stuff, but it's basically like that, the one religion, or the idea that say we use there's a lot of angels within this deck, but really you can substitute that for your view of spirits, or gods and goddesses, or ancestors, or sort of like facets of this oneness. So that sort of one true religion. So this would be the deck that can sort of be a diplomat, in that they can translate. So how one person perceives, say, an angel in this deck, and another sees a goddess, like how I might want to perceive something in one way. This would be the council member to say, maybe if we look at it in this way, we'll find the answer, or it might come differently, or we'll have a message received differently, or we'll get different results just based on like perceptions, or the way that we choose to present something. Almost like a Rosetta Stone who can translate between these various tongues and languages, and states of being and beliefs, and can move throughout them very fluidly, but also the kind of council member who wants to take you aside and sit you down with books to study, so that you have all this foundational knowledge of many different things that are important, so that you can discern these things for yourself. It's not the council member who's going to just deliver those answers to you, but that's going to make you it's going to give you, say, the groundwork and the direction to go in, and then hand you the books and then tell you to do it yourself. So not like it's not going to put you to work, but in a way it is. And so that's this council member, the Spirit Keeper. Sorry, my dog had to go outside, so at the end of that last clip, I just figured it would be best to pause it and take care of that. But we're back. So, moving on to our next council member, we have the Anima Mundi Tarot, or Anima Mundi, Anima Mundi, however you'd like to say it. So this is, of course, a very nature-based, animal and nature-based deck. Very clean images, super uncluttered in my opinion. So this would be the council member who, instead of having you look within or even outside of, this would say to just abandon the human aspect, not in like a cold or detached way, not saying like to be without emotion, but to consider outside of emotion, to be super objective, to maybe take into account the environment and outside forces. So if the people of the kingdom were starving and we were having a council meeting about giving out food and how we would handle it, this council member would be the one to consider, who would raise the point of what's like the status of the environment, what can we do to plant more crops, are we utilizing the land properly, are we taking care of it, is this why we are starving, maybe we are over like killing too much of the livestock for food, and that's and we did that the past few seasons, so now we're without this season. This would be like the council member who isn't necessarily concerned with, say, the people in the immediate moment, but in the long term wants to see how the environment can flourish, and in turn how that'll result in sort of the kingdom's livelihood down the line. So this is like one that makes you consider these sort of outside factors that might not seem immediately pertinent, but that ultimately circle back and affect you, and that without you would really be shit out of luck. So it's important to sort of take heed of what they have to say, and to realize that that yes, the people of the kingdom are your priority, but the land itself is within your kingdom, and without it, the people have nothing. So this council member would be that advocate, an advocate for that, and would remind you of the importance of those things. So that's that council member. Next we have, we'll do the Tarot de Synchro, or Synchro, however you pronounce it. So, and this one is, and yes, I'm going to link all these below, as I said, I apologize. It's by Lisa de Synchro, Synchro. Now, this council member for me, and I have seen other videos of this deck where it's described as being very energetic and happy, especially with like the orange going on and all of that, but for me it doesn't communicate to me like that, or at least that's not how I perceive it. It's a super melancholy deck, very somber and sad, like a deck of extreme loss. Not just like a sad deck in that it's dragging me down. It's about to me, it's like somebody who has suffered extreme loss and is maybe now in like the stages of like a rebirth or regrowth, kind of getting on after that loss. I just remember one of the first cards I drew was the Four of Cups, and I looked it up in the book thinking that it just felt particularly sad. I mean, the Four of Cups to me is never like an outright smiley happy card, but it's very thoughtful, but to me it just seemed particularly sad in this deck. And I remember that the book mentioned it being meant to depict the author's late brother, and that in and of itself was really sad. And then just a coincidence that we had the same initials, and she used the initials of her late brother in the book, and they're my initials as well. So I thought that was really interesting, and I just remember that being the first card I ever looked up in the book. This is the card. And so yeah, that's like the first sort of impression I got, or like one of the first impressions I got from the deck, and why I felt that way. So for me, this council member would be very well versed in an emotional landscape, like superhuman, the kind of human who has experienced the full capacity and realm of emotions. Nothing's left unfelt and experienced, and they've overcome and healed from all of it, sort of like the survivor, one who's been like traumatized and beaten but unbroken, and who has just like the kindest, biggest heart. Even though they've suffered all of these things, they haven't gone bitter and cold or despondent. They're very much alive and know how to live because they face these things and know that it's important to continue on, and that there is so much beauty in life to behold and to enjoy. So this would be the council member who sort of reminds you of your humanity in times when you might feel very detached from it, or when you're feeling down, knows how to not just give you that sort of superficial pickup, but sort of like a pep talk of really meaningful, deep wisdom and healing on how you can sort of truly reach a point that feels better for you to overcome certain emotional struggles or tough periods of time. So yeah, that's this council member. Okay, we're almost done. Well, kind of. We're making it. So next we have the, as I'm dropping them everywhere, we have, just getting rid of the extra cards. Where are you? There we go. The Dark Goddess Tarot by Lorenzi-Prince. As she has made other decks as well, like the Tarot of the Crone, and oh my god, there's one other one that I can like picture but not remember the name of. So yeah, this is the Dark Goddess Tarot, and this to me would be a council member who does not show up for every meeting because she does not feel as though they are all worth her time. She doesn't show up unless she really feels like it's important, and she just thinks that the ones of she decides which ones are really of like a magnitude that she needs to be there for. And so when she does show up, she is very much respected and heard, just because it's rare for her to make an appearance. And she sort of has this very dark, commanding presence. And when she speaks, she uses very few words, and they're usually very eloquent but cryptic, and she'll look at you waiting for you to sort of like for a light bulb to go off, and it won't go off then, and she'll give you sort of this look like not like you're stupid, but basically like what, like you should get it, or just sort of like or like an eye roll, and then like 4 or 5 days later you'll just like be sitting in bed and all of a sudden the light bulb will go off, and you'll get it. So she has very poignant sort of oracle like mysterious deep messages that are of extreme importance, but are found few and far between, and only when it's only when she's truly needed does she speak or show up, and she somehow knows when that is. So that's this council member. Okay, moving on to our 7th, I believe this is the 7th. Do I have my water? No. We shall survive. So our 7th council member, getting rid of the extra cards so that they don't show up. Okay, now this is the Phalaqa Tarot by Carmen Sorrenti. Trying not to get the glare. Okay. So, this is like a super like, oh my gosh, like the unconscious mind, super poetic. It's like just art. It speaks solely through like feeling and images. We'll start with like a basic sketch that almost looks like a cave painting, and will build its way up into this like crescendo of deep complexity. It's like just like an artist, or I would almost imagine this council member to not speak, or to almost be mute by choice, and to communicate solely through images, paintings, and feelings that they somehow transmit, and just sort of get you really in touch with your soul. Almost like this soul that they wear on the outside instead of the inside, where they get you to sort of understand the ability and the capabilities that you'll have, or that are possible, and that you can sort of tap into that like divine higher genius or higher self, and what how to do that, and what comes of it in terms of oneself and what's possible, and pushes those boundaries, not just of the mind and body, but of the heart. Not so much emotional in the way like Tarot de Saint Croix was, but this is more so like soul, and as if you were to like be accessing something greater than yourself, like the collective unconscious. This deck would be where it would teach you how to build that bridge, and it knows very well how to like attune itself to those sorts of things, and so it's like I don't know, it's a council member who's this collective ability to tap into the unconscious, and who sits there and just sort of looks at you and can like transmit these images and feelings to you, and can teach you all of these things. Yeah, just this deck is just so stunning. But yeah, so that's what this council member would be. So we've made it through all 7. And I did say I had an honorable mention who I'll bring out now. And the reason is, yeah, it's just newer to my collection. I've really been loving it, and I wanted to include it, but I didn't. I was very confident in these. I was pretty confident in these 7, and I couldn't give up a spot. And I also thought to myself, yes, this deck is very new, so I don't want to give it its own spot quite yet. But it is the Stolen Child Tarot by Monica L. Knighton. Let me get rid of the extra, the art cards, which are also very beautiful. And I guess I'll talk about it as if it's a council member, just so that you guys get a sense of like how I would place it if it were a council member. And this would definitely be the child. It would be like a child council member, one that is just so pure and untainted by the sort of realities of the world, potentially, I guess you could say, or who just thinks of everything with these rose-colored lenses and goggles, and who will just say, who's super precocious and will just say the wildest, most outlandish things. And there's always sort of like a nugget of knowledge within that nobody else could have come up with. And they just blurted it out at the most random time, like we're all having a serious conversation, and they yell something out, and we all just like look over, and we think about it for a second, and it really makes a lot of sense, or we're like, oh, like, yeah, okay, kind of thing. Yeah, just like a super, super fun, loving, someone who could kind of rear things in, not in that they would do it themselves, but we'd be conscious of their presence and almost want to like keep things contained for their sake, if that makes sense. Not let things get too out of hand at like a council meeting, because we know that they are present. And then just something about them engenders this really happy energy, and one that just feels like anything could be possible. So that's how I would categorize this member of the council if I were to give them a seat. But we have 7 spots, so they're on the wait list. So thank you for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed my 7 council members. Definitely go check out Kasia Tarot Map and Natalia at Ouroboros. They're really great channels. I will be sure to link all these decks down below, as I know I have not been the best about naming all the creators and artists and such. Yeah, I'll be back soon with the Oracle version, which is slightly different, but hope you guys have a nice day. Bye.